Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is Monday the 25th of March 2019. And tonight's topic, obstruction by tweet, strategies in the aftermath of the Mueller report. Good evening, Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers. We're going to go through a little later on in the program some of the responses on the Republican and Democratic side as to how to deal with the Mueller report. There's been some demands to see the report, and we're going to take a look at and analyze some of the strategies that both sides are using, and then we're going to get some of your thoughts on it. But first, let's take a look at the gold and silver markets today. The general markets were flat, so there was no, I would say, no reaction to the release of the summary of the Mueller report. The markets were essentially flat. The Dow Jones up just 14 points to 25,516, which means no gain whatsoever. NASDAQ, same thing, no loss whatsoever, really. It was down 5 points to 7637. S&P 500, same thing. It was down about 2 points to 2798. Now, there was an increase in the gold and silver prices. Not quite sure whether there was any impetus for that. I don't think the bar letter release of the summary of the Mueller report had anything to do with that either. There's some statements by Janet Yellen, which we're going to get to, maybe had an impact on the gold price. So let's take a look at the gold and silver prices. Gold price was up. Gold price rose nearly $8 to $13.21. So again, gold solidly ensconced above that $1,300 level. Silver had a similar day, up as well. I think it was up just slightly a bit more on a percentage basis than gold, but not much. 0.71%, up 11 cents to $15.52. Still chasing that $16 mark. And the gold-silver ratio today ended at, I think about 84. Oh, yeah, 85.13 to 1. So it's still hovering above, well above 80, and even above 85 to 1. There was one gold story. It's somewhat of a big deal, I suppose. Google Pay joins digital gold rush, set to launch gold as an investment plan soon. So this is akin to India has a program like this. I don't remember the name of it, where you can buy gold on your app, and essentially it's a digital gold, but supposedly it's backed by the amount of dollars that you pay. So it's like where Cash App has the ability to add Bitcoin, or just Bitcoin. On Google Pay, you'd be able to add a gold holding and then use that to spend. So it's significant in that I don't know how much demand there will be for it, but it does put gold in a position to be used as a currency, again, in ordinary transactions. Haven't seen the details on it, don't know when it's going to come out, but I think it's a significant move because you're going to see a lot of this. It's not just going to be gold. They'll probably, maybe not Google Pay, but other entities will realize that you can pretty much digitize anything and allow people to buy it in digital form and spend it the same way. So you can just as easily have silver, platinum, palladium, oil, all types of, and I'm sure as technology develops and the ability to track these assets online will happen. Okay, that's it for the gold and silver. Now over on the cryptos, not too much going on there either today. Slightly down day. Bitcoin currently at 39.05 on Coinbase. That's down 1.6%. Ethereum to 133, down less than 2%. Litecoin at 58.57, down 1.5%, and Bitcoin Cash at 159, down 2.5%. A couple of crypto stories before we get into our main stories on the Mueller report here. And we have Moronica tonight too, but let's see if there's any crypto stories. Yeah, these stories aren't that big of a deal, but worth noting, central banks see no value in issuing digital currency, BIS chief. There are downsides to central banks issuing digital currencies. They can be hacked. And if they put all of their currency on a digital platform, they have a problem, again, if they get hacked or if the central bank gets taken over by a hostile power, meaning then they just control the entire money supply and then no other money works other than what the central banks issue. So it is, especially the way the banks would issue a digital currency, it would be centralized. So there's really not much advantage to blockchain if it's centralized. It's just another ledger. So I think the way they currently issue their money, they're satisfied with, because it is digital too. It doesn't have to be on a centralized blockchain. Then there was a story about Dan Draper, or Tim Draper, urging Argentina's president to legalize Bitcoin to improve the economy. Don't know what will come of that. I'm not sure if that's going to matter. Remember, Venezuela is more than legalized cryptocurrency. They've actually endorsed it and set up a remittance page where you can send Bitcoin and Litecoin into Venezuela. China was in the news. Again, censorship, not surprising. China shreds about 29,000 problem world maps showing Taiwan as a country. Yep, very typical there. But more importantly, trade with China. This was an interesting response here from Yuan Talks. Chinese top officials pledged to lower tariffs and expand imports while tackling the trade standoff. That sounds like a big, big concession to the United States. Lower tariffs and expand imports with the U.S. and eyes faster bond sales and other measures to spur the slowing economy. So the two are connected. China was trying to deleverage, but ever since the United States put these tariffs on them and have started this negotiation with China, China's realized that deleveraging would be a disaster, meaning once they start the credit expansion that they started about 10 years ago, it's hard not to just keep accelerating it, and it looks like they're back to the printing presses in China. And while doing that, also looks like they'll probably concede a bit to the U.S. in the trade war. Now, a potential hot war, we know that China has historically, since 1948, I believe, when Chairman, who was it, Mao Zedong kicked out Shanghai Shek, the Chinese Civil War, and he took his people to Taiwan and set up the Chinese nation of Taiwan. I don't know what you call it, but there's a big battle. The mainland China says they're the real China. Taiwan says they're the real China. They've been battling over that. The United States historically, obviously, after World War II, supported Taiwan. In recent decades, they've also opened up, since Nixon 1972 went to Beijing, opened up trade with China, and now they play a fine line between supporting both Chinas, whichever one is the real China. But U.S. vessel ships sail through the Taiwan Strait, defying China. Pentagon sent 2 vessels through the Taiwan Strait on Sunday in a show of U.S. support for Taiwan. So ideologically, I think the United States is tied in with Taiwan, but Taiwan is a small island and a powerhouse economically in a sense, but it really can't be that big because it lacks the resources and the people power that the mainland China has. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, I think that's it on the geopolitical. We did have Janet Yellen. She, a couple of years ago, before she left, they asked her, what would you do if there was another downturn? This was like 2015. And she said that maybe that the Fed could buy stocks, but yet they don't have that power. Now, the Fed does not have the authorization to buy stocks. You remember what QE was? The Fed bought U.S. bonds and government-sponsored entity debt like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that kind of stuff. And they don't buy corporate bonds the way the ECB buys. You know, they can buy fiat bonds. They can buy Nestle bonds. They can buy whatever bonds that are issued in Europe. So they print up the euros and then they buy the bonds, and it gives an underlying support for the economy because they can, those companies now have a buyer for their bonds. They can be more liquid. They can do whatever they want with the money. But the ECB is a bondholder. Japan does the same thing. Swiss National Bank actually buys U.S. equities, Swiss equities. So central banks are involved in the debt markets, not just of their own country. So the Bank of Japan also buys its own debt. The United States has purchased its own debt in QE, treasury bonds. But other central banks also buy equities and corporate bonds. And Janet Yellen said a few years ago that she thought that that would be a good thing. That's a good thing to buy corporate stocks and bonds. And she's been a little active lately. And the other day she was out and about, and she was where was she talking? She was talking via video conference with bankers in Kansas City. This is from Reuters, and she said it's not a pressing issue now, but and they're barred from buying these types of assets by law, but the toolkit might not be good enough, might not be big enough. And she said, if we're to reach the limits in terms of purchasing safe assets like longer-term government bonds. So if we weren't able to buy enough government bonds and you want to do a little more money printing and stimulus, she said, it could be useful to be able to intervene directly in assets where the prices have a more direct link to spending decisions. So she wants people to, or the bank, the Federal Reserve, to be able to buy stuff to juice the economy. Spending decisions, meaning they would be the spender, they would put the money in the economy, they would give it to stock companies. And right now, Swiss National Bank actually funnels money into Tesla. That's one of the stocks that they own. They don't just own the blue chip stocks, they own a wide array of stocks, not just dividend producing stocks and highly rated stocks or just the Dow. They own unicorns, and I would imagine the Fed would want to do the same. I don't think the Fed could. It's a really tricky business. First of all, even the fact that they would print money to buy anything is already outrageous. But then what they would do is they would have to pick which stocks they're going to invest in. Now, of course, you're going to get cries of nepotism, and you're going to get companies that are going to want to have their stocks purchased by the Fed. And I think it's a disaster to even suggest it. But Janet thinks it might be useful. Yep, highly accommodative monetary policy, the committee. Yeah, that's good old Janet Yellen. I don't know why she's yakking and why anyone's listening to it, but I guess she wants to be the new Greenspan. He's out there always yakking, giving his points of view. To his credit, you don't hear much from Bernanke anymore. All right, well, I think it's time for, yes, our favorite portion of the show, and then we're going to get into our strategy discussion. But first... Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
No, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
There's been a lot of ignorance. And this will tie into our strategy discussion. And you can't blame, well, they're not lawyers, they don't know any better. Some of them are lawyers. That they actually hire lawyers. Some of the presenters that you see on mainstream media are lawyers. And if they're not lawyers, they have access to lawyers. But it seems that lawyers and economists, they've lost their ability to do legal reasoning, economic reasoning, when it comes to analyzing these situations with the Mueller probe. They're more looking to give an answer that's palatable to their audience than they are to actually come up with sound legal reasoning. And then you get non-lawyers, we're going to see, that also say some outrageous things that just belie any understanding or knowledge of how things work, like a special counsel investigation and its report. But this one is really ignorant. Well, you got the response here. Let me show you. So this woman here, Nicole Wallace, is on the Morning Schmo, and she's saying the collusion issue is over. And then she says, I think this is a direct quote. I don't want to play the. She says, why don't they just hand over the report to Congress as a half-baked dinner so that they can just like mull over it and figure out what's in there? That this is moronic. And I don't think she said it tongue in cheek or some type in jest. she was suggesting it. You know, they're all shaking their head on the Morning Joe. Yeah, okay, that may make sense. Yeah, we need to see the report. Transparency. And as we're going to see, there are laws and procedures surrounding the disclosure of a special counsel report. Remember, the people that are in favor of all of this disclosure and transparency, they're the ones who say we have to respect our intelligence agencies, our alphabet agencies, the DOJ. There are laws and there are department regulations on how and when you can disseminate a special counsel report. And one of the things that's in there, which would absolutely prohibit you just from turning over a special counsel report, is Rule 6E of the Federal Rules of Federal Evidence that prohibits the disclosure of grand jury information without a court order. So Barr can't just say, hey, here's a half-baked dinner, I'll break the law, I don't care, because Mary Wallace, or whatever her name is on the Morning Joe, thinking that might be a great idea, and then everyone in the circle is just shaking their heads going, yeah, that's a good idea, good idea. I don't know what they pay her for those kind of comments. So you can't just hand over the report to, and these people also in Congress, 90% of them are lawyers, they should know better, but they don't know anything. And they're saying, yeah, we just got to see the whole report. Bernie Sanders said today, I don't want a summary of the report, I want the whole damn report. Now, he's not a lawyer, but he's just talking in front of a crowd. He wants the report. Okay, and then the others, there's classified information in these reports. There's information subject to executive privilege. There's privacy concerns. You don't just hand over the whole report, but this gets into our strategy, how it's actually pretty moronic to even want to see the whole report and then to want to have it on display, because the special counsel made a determination based on the conclusion is all that matters. It doesn't even matter what's in there and how they got there, because these are the same people that say you have to respect the intelligence agencies, the Department of Justice, the special counsel. We must have to protect Mueller. But now that they don't like the result, they want to see the report. They don't just want Bill Barr's summary of it. They want to see the whole damn report. Okay, now let's get into this strategy stuff. Now, before we get there, I do want to let you know that Smaulgld is now taking Smaulgld Mug Stacker Club members over on Subscribestar. Now, what's Subscribestar? Just quickly. Patreon was a pretty good, and I still have Patreon, and a lot of people use Patreon, and I haven't had any problems with Patreon. But there was some controversy with Patreon a couple of months back. They had booted some high-profile YouTubers, I think Sargon of Akkad, a couple of others, off of Patreon for reasons the same way like they deleted or the account of the woman the other night who showed Rachel Maddow and crying, so she started laughing at her. They can, and all of these Subscribestars, probably no different, can be heavy-handed, and you are putting your trust in a third party that they are going to give you the money. I saw a guy, in the super chats, if they don't like what you're saying, Google or YouTube will withhold the money. Now, Subscribestar, I think, doesn't have a PayPal option. And PayPal also has booted people that they don't like. They've closed people's bank accounts, PayPal accounts. So none of these third-party programs are bulletproof. However, it seems that the Subscribestar is a good alternative for those who don't want to use Patreon. And in fact, PayPal doesn't support Subscribestar, so that's probably a good thing. So if you want to become a Smaulgld patron, not a Patreon, a patron, you can do so by signing up for any of the tiers we have on the Smaulgld Mug Stacker clubs, and then they will pay me by check, so it won't be through PayPal. And I'd appreciate it if anyone wants to become the first Smaulgld, join the Smaulgld Mug Stacker clubs. I think we have different tiers, $5, $10, $15. And then there's a mug club tier where your first 2 months you get a couple of mugs, and then you can change your tiers from there. You can just keep it wherever you'd like to do it. So Anyone wants to do that, please let me know, or just I'll give you the link. You don't have to let me. You'll let me know by actually signing up. I'll give you that link right now in the things here. All right, here it is. You can go there and sign up to become one of the first, if not the first tonight, Smaulgld Mug Stacker Club member on Subscribestar. Okay, what else do we have now? Oh, I just want to show you, for what it's worth, what people say they like to do, how they like to give, and it looks like PayPal is the #1 way of donating, or how they like to donate. The one advantage of cryptocurrencies is no one can interfere with your donation. It's not like they decide at the end of the month they're not going to pay out. None of that can happen. You can send it directly to Smaulgld, and also another way that's also very direct is if you send to Smaulgld via the post office box that we have. And I do want to thank people who have done that. They have sent cash or checks via the post office, and that's very nice to get it that way. My own preference is I don't really care, except what I do care about is that because I'm happy to get the donations in any way, but I do lose part of the donation when it goes through PayPal, Patreon, or Subscribestar, whereas I get 100% if it's by check or cash or cryptocurrencies. But let me show you what people are saying. And I got a couple of extra ways of donating that people reminded me of. Obviously, you can buy your mugs or your Smaulgld merchandise, like this guy mug or the Game Changer mug or the this guy t-shirt or the beer steins. That's all cool, and I do get a small amount from that. Or you can also, no one mentioned it, but you can buy, and I do appreciate when people buy their gold and silver through SD Bullion or Money Metals Exchange or Golden Eagle Coin, because I get a commission there. And here is, and also like to thank Mark Battaglia. He donates via, very appreciative of all those cool tunes that we have at the beginning of each episode. But here's what it is. People, it's easy. I know a lot of people like to use PayPal. It's easy. PayPal also has a recurring feature, so you can almost do the same thing with a Subscribestar or Patreon. You can make a monthly payment. I do have a few people that do that. I do thank them as well. And you can see Subscribestar is low just because it's new, but Patreon is not very popular anymore. That used to be probably the #1 way of donating to content providers. And cryptocurrencies, you got a quarter of people doing that, and you got some people who think just mailing cash or checks that's a good thing. That is a good thing. All right, and here's the old-fashioned Smaulgld fundraising. I don't have on here Subscribestar, but I've now put that below, and you've seen if you go to Smaulgld Subscribestar, you can donate that way, and I do appreciate that. All right, let's get now into strategy. This is important. So the first question is, what is the strategy going forward? I would think most people, Democrats and Republicans, are willing to give up the idea of collusion. Although there may still be some people holding on hope that if they get the original memo, they might be able to find dead leads or look like dead-end leads and continue to try to force the issue of Russian collusion. Now, I think that would be, I don't even think it requires analysis. I think on its face, it's foolish to do that because you've put all this time and effort into a special counsel. It's been looked at 6 ways, every which way for 2 years, and they haven't come up with one bit of evidence that anyone in the Trump campaign or any American, not just anyone in the Trump campaign, colluded with Russia. So I would think, and I'd like to see your comments, that is just, I don't know anyone who would think that would be a good strategy. I think that is moronic to even try to continue along those lines. Now, the obstruction of justice one I also think is pretty foolish too. And here's a question. Doesn't the absence of any underlying crime by definition eliminate the possibility of obstruction of justice? No. But it is very, very heavily weighed in making the determination. Let me just show you. So once we've got the underpinning of how it works, then we can see what strategy makes the most sense. So in the Barr letter, they made the determination that there was no obstruction. Not because the special counsel's report concluded there was no obstruction, but because the special counsel punted on that issue. Now, the reason that the special counsel probably punted on that was in order to keep alive something if the Democrats, I would think ill-advisedly, wanted to continue to pursue it. Because they would say, well, Mueller didn't do, for whatever reason, Mueller didn't pursue obstruction of justice, but we're going to pursue it. Now, that's foolish for a number of reasons. First of all, the special counsel is the best vessel to place all of your chips in if you want obstruction of justice, because he could have brought the indictment, chose not to draw a conclusion. Now, generally, when somebody has the power to do something and doesn't do it, I would think the inference you can draw is he didn't think he could make the case. Because if he could have made the case, he would have brought it. But he did not want to have two nothings. Like, oh, okay, no collusion and no obstruction of justice. Because he knew the obstruction of justice charge was going to probably get left out. And I'm going to explain why the obstruction of justice charge holds very, very little water either. If you look at what it says, as the reports, this is the Barr letter, second part addresses a number of actions by the president, most of which have been the subject of public reporting. Now, I read that to be his tweets and his firing of Comey. Those are in the public domain. It's if Trump was doing something on the side, back channels, doing a lot of nefarious things, suborning perjury, killing witnesses, things like that, yeah, well, that's obstruction of justice, even if there was no crime. You see, her question was, isn't it just as a matter of fact that if you don't have a crime, that there's no justice that you can obstruct? But that's not necessarily true, because here's the exact language from Bill Barr. The evidence doesn't establish that the president was involved in underlying crime related to the Russian election interference, but that in and of itself is not determinative. The absence of such evidence bears upon the president's intent with respect to obstruction. So generally speaking, he says, to obtain and sustain an obstruction conviction, the government would need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the person acting with corrupt intent engaged in obstructive conduct with sufficient nexus to a pending or contemplated proceedings. So if Trump didn't rob a bank, and they say to him, did you rob the bank? And he says, no, I didn't rob the bank. And they say, we're going to investigate you for robbing the bank. And he says, witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt. That's not obstruction of justice. Not just because he didn't rob it, is because he's really not intending to obstruct justice, especially if there wasn't even a bank robbery. So they're not going to be able to prove without a reasonable doubt that he was acting with corrupt intent. He was honestly saying, I didn't do it. And then it says, in cataloging the president's actions, many of which took place in public view. Sorry, that's Twitter. He said it again here, public view. The report identifies no action in our judgment constitutes obstructive conduct that had a nexus to a pending or contemplating proceedings or were done with corrupt intent. And therefore, there's not obstruction of justice. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, the news media is saying that, how could they? I know it was Samantha Guthrie. Now, she's supposed to be a lawyer, and she was interviewing Sarah Sanders. She's like, how could they have come up with this decision in just 2 days? It's pretty easy, because if you're going to try to say he's obstructing justice from tweets, I can make that decision in about 10 minutes. Then they were saying that she was saying, but Bill Barr already had an opinion on this. Well, true, but Rod Rosenstein had been overseeing this thing. He was the guy, he was Mueller's boss for years. So he can make a determination on that pretty easily since he's been living with it for 2 years. We're going to get to Rod Rosenstein. and how Donald Trump handled him in a way like a mafia don in the old keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We're going to get to that in a second. All right, so you can obstruct justice even if there's no crime, but under these facts and circumstances, it's just not possible to do it that way. Now let's get into the strategy of what's going on. Let's start with Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham and the Republicans are now saying to themselves, House Intel, they're going to ready these criminal referrals for Clinton operatives who perpetuated this hoax. Now, it's long been held that on the Republican side that this whole thing was a hoax. And what they point to is that there was no, well, they still can't find a valid predicate for bringing the investigation. They say, oh, well, there was some meeting and somebody was drunk and talking in Australia about getting dirt on Hillary Clinton. That was not the full-blown reason why they got FISA warrants and so on. Apparently the real guts of the information that they had in order to spy on the Trump campaign was due from the information found in the Steele dossier, which was produced by a British foreign intelligence agency paid for by the Clinton campaign, and Steele himself got information from Russians. So it does sound a little fishy. Now, you never hear it reported that way on the side of the Democrat side. They just talk about it as if, well, it hasn't been unproven. Well, it hasn't been proven, and one of the things that Lindsey Graham is talking about now is, this to me is very clever strategy. Lindsey Graham is not as dumb as he looks. And a lot of decisions that were made over the last 2 years, you kept saying to yourself, are they trying to lose? Why do they not fire Rosenstein? Why are they trying to protect Mueller? What is going on? A lot of people were saying that he should fire Mueller, they should fire Rosenstein, and Trump should release all the documents, and that would prove no collusion. Well, as it's played out, I'm going to give them credit for foresight. Lindsey Graham today said that he wanted to probe the alleged FISA abuses, and he wants to know the people who signed the FISA warrants based on the Steele dossier, what they were thinking, and how did they verify those documents. Now, who signed the FISA warrants? Well, the two big ones are Comey and Rosenstein. Rosenstein signed the last one. So if you think about it, Rosenstein is managing Mueller, who is investigating Trump on the basis of information they may have got from the FISA warrants, which contain the Steele dossier, of which Rosenstein signed off on. Rosenstein also wrote a memo recommending Donald Trump to fire James Comey. Firing of James Comey is also one of the supposed underpinnings of an obstruction of justice charge. So Rosenstein is even more conflicted than Jeff Sessions. But put that aside for a minute. Lindsey Graham wants to probe these FISA abuses. He wants to know, he wants to haul in front of Congress who were the signers and have them answer questions. But more importantly, he wants to keep calling on Barr to appoint a new special counsel. He wants to know what role Comey played, what role Rosenstein played. He wants to know about Bruce Orr, who's number 4 at the FBI, and why his wife is working at Fusion GPS, which was how the Steele dossier was funneled through to the FBI. And he's calling for this outside counsel, a special counsel. Now, why is this clever? Well, here's why. He actually was a staunch supporter of Mueller's special counsel. He actually went out of his way to protect the special counsel. And now he's calling for a new special counsel to look into potential FISA abuse. And also into Clinton and the whole Russia counterintelligence probe. One of the concerns the Democrats had all along that Trump was petrified that Trump was going to fire Mueller before he can get it done. And for those people who thought they knew that this was a witch hunt and there was nothing there, and they feel vindicated now that it turns out that Mueller found nothing, then this was a waste of time and they should have fired him in the first place. But because Lindsey Graham went to the extreme and said, no, this is important, he actually created a precedent that the special counsel is very important and needs, if once they're appointed, they need to be defended and protected. Well, if he gets his way and Bob Barr appoints a special counsel to look into the FISA abuse, anything related to Hillary Clinton, how they ran that investigation, now he has, I don't know if you call it the moral high ground, but he actually solidifies the point of view that a special counsel really should be sacrosanct. Now, that will serve the Republicans' point of view if they actually get Barr to appoint a special counsel. Trump has been saying that we need to look at the other, someone should look at the other side. It's funny, he can direct the Attorney General to look at the other side, but he says someone should look at the other side. And Lindsey Graham seems to be stepping up because James Comey, I don't know, he thinks he's some type of new age ethical leader or something. He's standing out there in the woods and he tweets so many questions, and Lindsey Graham says, could not agree more, see you soon. So I guess he wants to subpoena him to come in and ask him. Comey's got the biggest problem because not only did he mess up and he was publicly chastised by Rosenstein for the way he handled the Clinton investigation with those press conferences, which it was totally out of bounds to do in that fashion, because when you don't charge somebody, this is again goes back to the same thing about the summary of the Mueller report, you're not supposed to hand over information and make public behaviors that you're not going to charge, because the person is now, they can't defend themselves. So what he did was a disservice to Hillary Clinton. He goes out there and he says 6,000 things that she did wrong, and he says, yeah, but we're not going to charge her. It made him look foolish because he says she did all these things, he's not going to charge her. But it also made Hillary Clinton look bad because she's supposed to get the benefit of not being charged. Instead, she was charged. He put all that information, but she wasn't charged. But in public opinion, now everybody knows that Hillary Clinton did all these things. And that's not supposed to happen. So Comey's got that issue. And then he admitted he leaked the information that from his conversation with Trump to somebody so they can give it to the New York Times. He admitted that the Steele dossier was salacious and unverified, and yet he signed off on the FISA application, which included the bulk of the information in that FISA application was the Steele dossier. And when he was interviewed, there's some, I think it was Holt or somebody said, wasn't that the basis of the of getting the FISA warrant? He said, I don't remember. I'm sure there were other things in there. So he's got a lot of problems, really, and he does, I don't think he realizes it. He's shown his bias, and okay, so that's going to happen. I would think there will be a special counsel, and what Lindsey Graham has done is very clever because he's laid the groundwork that the special counsel is not to be messed with. More on strategy, and then also some stupidity. Let's do obstruction by tweet, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. The firing of James Comey and the tweeting, I believe, are the bulk of the obstruction evidence they had. They went back and forth that Mueller was unable or unwilling or purposely did not make a decision on, so he can say, I can't exonerate him, which is not what, he didn't exonerate him on Russian collusion. They don't exonerate anyone. They just don't charge. So he put in that language, very clever. However, according to the the guidelines of the special counsel, he left that decision to Mueller and to Barr and to Deputy Rosenstein. Now, it was very clever of Barr to keep Rosenstein. It was also even more clever of Trump to keep Rosenstein there. We're going to get to that in a second. So if the evidence of obstruction of justice consists largely of screenshots of Trump's tweet, it shouldn't take too long to determine no obstruction, especially when the special counsel Mueller, who is a prosecutor, refused to bring that dead on arrival indictment. Remember, nothing would tarnish Mueller more than running for 2 years, finding no collusion, and no obstruction of justice. Then what was he doing? He was chasing down Cohen's taxi cab medallions. He was chasing down his tax violations. He's SWAT raiding Roger Stone. What use is he? Jerome Corsi, the guy who wrote a book on birthers. He got Manafort for not registering as a foreign agent, for lying on a loan application. That was not his original task. What the country was concerned about, at least supposedly, Russians had interfered with our democracy, and it was Donald Trump, Putin's puppet, who was the treasonous traitor who had done all this. Well, and Mueller time, what meant he was going to find all this. Well, he didn't. Now, he couldn't just say, there's not really obstruction of justice charge there either. So instead of saying that, he said, I can't exonerate him on that. There was a little bit of this, there was a little bit of that, there was a tweeting over here, he fired someone over there. All of a sudden, he's not the master prosecutor. He's not the guy. It's not Mueller time. He says, I don't know. Basically, what he did was he handed over to Congress, if they so strategically wish to pursue this, which I would think it's moronic too, so that they're not second-guessing Mueller. They're saying, well, Mueller could have if he wanted to, but he didn't, and why didn't he? I don't know, but we're going to do it. We're going to get him. Meanwhile, because Barr and Rosenstein made the determination, now they can say that, well, it was Trump's hand-picked attorney general. All the attorney generals are hand-picked. This is kind of foolish, and they made the determination that he didn't obstruct justice. And again, if Mueller thought that he could have brought the case, he would have. He would not have punted. So instead, he did this wishy-washy thing with, I don't know, I'm not really this powerful prosecutor. It was too hard for me to figure out. So there's some stuff in the report, little of this, little of that, a tweet here, a tweet there. What do you think, Bob? So it looks like Bob is like the handpicked guy who made the determination. Didn't take him long to figure it out. Now here's Chuck Todd. Boy, I tell you, it's very confusing here. Everything relating to what we just talked about. No, it's not confusing. It's clear the last thing Mueller wanted was a complete exoneration, but he knew he could not make the obstruction indictment stick, so he punted knowing it might taint Trump. That was his one little bone he was able to give for not being able to complete the task that was given to him, and the reason was there was nothing there in the first place. It shouldn't take 2 years of this. And there was no predicate other than, it appears, the Steele dossier, and that's why Flimsy Graham wants to have the special counsel to look into that. Yeah, and I mentioned here, the report says the evidence is mostly stuff done in public, which is probably Trump's tweets. And again, I don't think saying witch hunt is obstructing, because here's the real reason why it's not. Just with respect to the tweets. Trump did not fire Mueller. Trump only tweeted that it was a witch hunt. There were 19 angry Democrats. There were no dollars withheld. There was nothing, and Mueller didn't say there was any line of inquiry he wanted to pursue that he wasn't allowed to. It went on for 2 years. So how was Trump obstructing justice? Not just for the fact that there wasn't a crime in the first place, but all he did was whine and complain that there was this witch hunt going on. And in fact, there's some exculpatory things on Trump. McCabe even said that they were not impeded. And Trump told Comey in the leaked Comey testimony that, yeah, if there's anything my guys are doing, I want to know about it. Comey lied to Trump and said, you're not under investigation. Like hell he wasn't. That was the whole point of the whole thing here. All right, so I think Lindsey Graham made a very strong strategic move there. I don't know if he did it on purpose, but he's now taking advantage of the fact that he was a vehement defender of Robert Mueller as the special counsel. Trump's strategy. Check this out. There's a saying in The Godfather, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I think that's what Don Corleone Jr. learned from his dad. And Don Trump seems to have absorbed that lesson. Think about Rod Rosenstein. The guy should have been fired, especially after they found out that he had said, verified that he had said this. He said he was just kidding, but there were other people in the room that testified to Congress. I know Rosenstein said that if you want, I can wear a wire. We can catch him like acting foolish and saying stupid stuff, and we can try to evoke the 25th Amendment. That's just outrageous that he would do that. And people are saying, okay, this is enough here. You don't have an attorney general because Sessions recused himself. You've got Rod Rosenstein, who appoints Robert Mueller, who is after you, and he is the guy who signed the FISA warrant. And he's now outed as trying to undermine you as being a kook that needs to be removed because you don't have all your marbles. And so everybody's expecting, okay, well, Trump has shown so much restraint here, and people are wondering, why is he showing all this restraint? Why doesn't he just release all of the classified documents that show that it's them that's done the wrong, that's they that's done the wrong things, that he's innocent? Well, on that issue, the reason he didn't do that was because I think he didn't want to say he was obstructing justice, because that would be an interference with the ongoing investigation. He's already pointing out why the investigation is not correct because he's got all this other information. So I think he was smart to hold on to that information, that exculpatory information, if he indeed has it. But not firing Rosenstein was a stroke of mafia genius, because mafia Don genius. He gets him on the plane after this major news story. And he makes, I don't know, no one has the transcripts, no one knows what happened. But imagine sitting down with the guy you've been outed that you want to have him removed, that you are the traitor from within, and you have to sit on the plane with the guy for 8 hours. And everyone's expecting that he's going to be fired. He was supposed to, as I recall correctly, have a meeting with Trump, and then Trump called it off, so making him sweat, it seemed like. And then he gets him on the plane, and he gets off the plane. He's like, yeah, Rod's a good guy. Rod's fine. Everything is fine. Think about the advantage to having Rod Rosenstein stay. Now, he has proven he's like a weasel on both sides, because here's what happened. He signs a FISA application to get Trump. He appoints a special counsel to get Trump. Then he writes a memo to fire Comey, and then he oversees Mueller in the special counsel's investigation to charge Trump with obstruction of justice for firing Comey on the basis of the memo that he wrote. You can see he's the classic duplicitous guy in a cartoon. And then he volunteers to wear a wire to nail Trump. Okay. But what happened in this decision where Mueller could not charge Trump with obstruction of justice? He says, I don't know. Here's the information. Barr, you look at it. So Barr looks at it, and Barr says to himself, I can't make this decision on my own. Rod, what do you think? Now remember, Rod Rosenstein tried to say that Trump made him write the memo about Comey to fire him. Well, sorry, you wrote it and you signed it. Same with, you signed the FISA warrant, and guess what Rosenstein did? He signed the most recent determination that they will not charge Trump with obstruction of justice. Trump managed to use a hostile internal asset by keeping him around into a favorable one. He got Rosenstein through Barr to sign up that he didn't commit obstruction of justice. Genius, actually. All right. Now, finally, this is obstruction by stupidity. We had obstruction by tweet. This is what I'm talking about. There's a guy. Hey, maybe he's a good guy. I don't know. He's like this guy, that guy, Jonathan Chait. I don't know why anyone pays attention to this, but I guess he works at the New Yorker, one of these magazines. He's not a lawyer, but this is what he says. If you refuse to cooperate with the investigation, you can't claim you were cleared. That's how obstruction of justice works. No, that's not how obstruction of justice works. He didn't refuse to cooperate. He didn't testify. He didn't have to. The obstruction of justice, there is no obstruction of justice. It's already been determined that he's not going to be charged with obstruction of justice. So I don't even know what he's talking about here. But this is the kind of thing you get where they're just grasping for straws, looking for anything. Yeah, people listen to this drivel and believe it, consult a lawyer. And it's not analysis. He's the same guy. He's saying that Trump, it's possible, but I can't. It's all if true. Yeah, it's fine to speculate. Trump, I think, is one of his interactions with Russia was in 1987. And therefore, he's been groomed ever since then. Okay. I mean, anything's possible, but there's no evidence of that. Yeah, it's all this armchair analysis from people trying to figure out ways to justify the outcome they want. It's total gibberish. But that's what you're seeing that passes for analysis on TV. And the worst is when the lawyers do it. Like it's somehow legal analysis that they come up with this kind of stuff. So I think right now, and then we're going to get into your thoughts on the strategy here, is the Democratic strategy of, I don't want a summary of the report, I want the whole damn report. Pushing this too far is a huge mistake. You've already lost on the collusion. To continue with that, you're undermining the idea that somehow Robert Mueller is all of a sudden no longer Mueller time. He's no longer the guy of the highest integrity. No, you're saying we want to second guess him. And you're not going to be, the Senate, first of all, doesn't have prosecutory power. They're not going to be able to put together 500. They're not going to be able to have the depth and scope of the investigation of the Mueller team. Remember, the Mueller team, whatever you want to say about them, 19 angry Democrats, these were people who are schooled in and know how to do this kind of prosecutorial investigation and paneling grand juries. These Congress people, they don't know what they're doing. They're just going to investigate, and what are they going to come up with? And if they come up with nothing other than innuendo, it has no legal effect. It's really stupid, in my opinion, to even think about going after collusion. Obstruction of justice, same thing. If you want to go page by page of the report in front of in Congress and bring Bill Barr in, he's going to run circles around them. Okay, then bring Mueller in. Mueller is already done. Mueller has done his job. There's no upside to him saying, but I could have, but I should have, and thinking about, he's not like Comey. Comey, he just talks out loud. Mueller's not going to go in there and say, yeah, it was a real mistake that I didn't bring the obstruction of justice. I was this close. That's not going to happen. They're not going to say that they should have brought the case, but so what's going to happen is that can backfire on them. And now they're just wasting more and more time talking about something that didn't happen and trying to make it look like it happened, opening themselves up to charges that it was a witch hunt. Plain and simple. Now, there was one other thing here, and CNN is just on that side. I'm not quite sure what they add to this, but one of the things they wrote, let me see if I can still find it. Here it is. Trump moves to weaponize Mueller findings. That's what they've done for 2 years with the Mueller probe. It's not weaponizing the Mueller findings. Look, if you've been accused of something for 2 years for something you didn't do, I think you're entitled to kind of react as much as you wish. But also, what they don't realize is the Republicans and Trump, they have no problem releasing this document, it appears. Remember, There's two things that haven't come out yet. The declassification of the documents, which Trump knows what's in those. There's no special counsel yet. There probably will be, looking into how all this came about. And if they do start second-guessing this, I saw Giuliani on TV. He's the personal lawyer, along with Jay Sekulow, of Donald Trump. They've got a 90-page memo with all point-by-point, and they have documents too. When you get a beating, you don't come back for more when you're weakened. It's not like they're going to come back stronger. They've been dealt a severe blow, and they don't have anything other than show us how you beat us. In other words, the Mueller report made the conclusion definitively. It's not like Barr mischaracterized it, because Mueller would have spoken up and said, no, I have more indictments. There are no... All right, I was cut off there, but I know now, when YouTube cuts me off, how to get back on real quickly. All right, I think we've exhausted that on strategy, you know, my opinions. So let's see what you guys are saying, thinking in the comments section here. I think our first comment comes from De La Ville and Ann Holloman and Pablo, the whole gang, Headmaster, Wharton. All right. Yes, Michael Avenatti was he was arrested today. And I don't know the details of it, but Avenatti has been a huge critic of... He actually was taunting Donald Trump Jr., saying that he would be indicted by the end of last year and that he's on his way out. And anyway, he got indicted for apparently trying to extort $30 million from Nike. Now, I always thought that's what lawyers do. I mean, I don't mean they do extortion, but generally forbearing. I don't know what he did. So it sounded like he was trying to get $30 million out of them, or he was going to sue. I don't know. But it sounded like it wasn't typical lawyer stuff. It was more like blackmail stuff. So it's not quite sure what happened. But thanks for mentioning that, Pablo. Venezuela is using Litecoin and Bitcoin. Yes, and they're doing that through... We covered this as a Smaulgld YouTube on it. They're using a remittance page where the government takes a cut. They're actually acting like BitPay for Venezuela. All right. Seth says that he is increasing his Bitcoin holdings. All right. Coins AZ is here, and he says, hi, all this guy mug stackers. That's a new one. Yes, I understand. I received word today that people are receiving now those, because I don't ship them out, the This Guy mugs and the This Guy t-shirts. So they're making their way out across the country. For those of you who purchased your Smaulgld Game Changer, This Guy products, and there were some other orders too, but the This Guy line of Smaulgld merchandise, apparently the first rounds are slowly making their way, but surely, to the Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers who collect these such items. Let me show, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, and sometimes there's new people. I know we've got the same crowd here most nights, but we do get occasionally new people, which is good. I mean, the channel can't grow unless we get new people coming in. But here is This Guy mugs. There it is. There's also t-shirts. If you go to the Smaulgld site, you can find all the way, smaulgld.com, how to purchase your mugs, how to donate. All right. What else do we have tonight? He needs to do more videos. Who's that? Oh, Da Vinci. I don't know who that is. Okay. Crypto Shrugged Author is here. Crypto Shrugged Author. Lewis does a damn solid news recap. I honestly don't even check Drudge or anything anymore. Well, thank you. I do a Crypto Shrugged. Is there a subscription for this channel? I don't know what channel you guys are talking about. Okay. There is a subscription for Smaulgld. And you can do that via PayPal or via Subscribestar or Patreon. All right, let's see. Pablo Pina, wish you the opportunity to be aware of paying $100 in Bitcoin. I wish I had the opportunity to be aware of just playing $100 in Bitcoin. Oh, I see. Yep. You know what kept me away from it, which is a real mistake? I was well aware of it. And I was fundamentally opposed to Bitcoin I'd heard about 2012, 2013. I'd write about it. And the reason I was against it, and I should know better, is because I was against it. And I already had this experience where I thought things like Samsung mini players were better than Apple shuffles. Well, it doesn't matter what I think. People preferred the Apple shuffle. People were thinking, and I never thought this would happen. I thought, how can anyone put any value on Bitcoin? It's just a bunch of numbers. It's not backed by anything. Oh, and I heard all the arguments, and I know all the arguments. Myself, I would never give any value to it. But that's not how the world works. The world doesn't work according to what I would give value to. So I had all the opportunities to buy it, and I said, well, it's stupid, and it's not going to go anywhere. Then when I realized it was, because I'd seen enough, because I wasn't that hard-headed about it. I wasn't testadura. I kept hearing things like they're going to arrest people who buy it. So I'm like, well, I don't need that hassle to put $200 in it and get arrested, so I'm not going to do it. And then I started accepting the Bitcoin on the site. And back then, in 2014, 15, people were more than happy to send you Bitcoin because they just wanted you to evangelize you. And I had it all converted into dollars. So back then, I probably made 200, I don't know what the number, wasn't a lot. But it was at numbers in the hundreds of dollars. It was when Bitcoin was in the hundreds of dollars. But I converted it into, I just converted it into dollars, and that money's long since been spent and not put towards Bitcoin. As you say, you live and you learn, but it just shows the world doesn't. This is why people don't. It goes back to gold and silver. Gold is money, period. And you can say it all you want. If the world doesn't think it is, I'm not saying the world doesn't, but silver is a better example. Silver isn't. That's why it doesn't have the value. There's no rule or law that your point of view, no matter how rationally held, is the correct point of view. All right, let's see what else you guys got. I was listening to Bix. That was my personal disaster, says De La Ville. Yep. All right, what else do we have here? New, support Smaulgld on Subscribestar. Who wrote that? Oh, that's me. All right. You guys are chatting with yourself. I'm sorry, Lewis, talking about other stuff. Sorry, I will concentrate. You're going to have to go back. You know, you miss class like this for chatting amongst yourselves. You're going to have to go back and re-listen to the lecture. Tirabadoo is here from Salivate Metal. Is Smaulgld a slurp? Well, you know, I like Salivate Metal. I love the channel. But this is not a knockoff channel. I don't try to imitate Salivate, and he doesn't try to imitate me. Well, actually, I do try to imitate him, but not his contextually or what he produces. I don't try to do what he does. You want a slurp? I've never done this. I never slurp. Nevertheless, Salivate Metal. How's that? All right. Let's see. It's my first purposeful slurp. Seth Shepard, Lindsey Graham is decent. Go figure. Yeah, go figure. The message is held for review. Coins AZ. Trump derangement syndrome by the establishment. Oh, I see. You wrote Democrats. So that's your message is not showing. There's more to diminish their credibility than any attacks by the establishment retardlicans. So he's got Democrats and retardlicans. I think strategically you're correct, as inartfully as you might have phrased that. I mentioned this last night. If you're just the run-of-the-mill person who's not really paying much attention to politics, but you do vote, you don't spend a lot of time on this, but you have seen, I think it was an article today, there's been like 500,000 stories on Trump collusion with Russia. It's somewhat the idea, if you see something 24/7, I think that's why people are more messed up today than ever before. It used to be, when I was a lad, you might watch the TV at 7 o'clock news and maybe You might hear something on the radio, but you weren't bombarded with the same narrative 24/7. So today, with people on social media, they see the same thing all day, thousands of times a day. Russian collusion, Trump collusion, Putin's puppet. You just see it over and over again. And that's why people, I believe, are even more ingrained in their narratives. The same with the, I mention all the time with the silver and gold pumpers, the crypto pumpers. They go from channel to channel. 40 years ago, you weren't able to find that much material on gold or silver or crypto or even Watergate. It might have been on the news all the time, but the news wasn't on all day. So you might at 7 o'clock hear half an hour worth of Watergate, enough to convince you Nixon was guilty. But today, you spend all... This is why people are still believing there's Russian collusion, because I heard it. There were 500,000 articles out there in the last year or so. And it's the same reason people believe J.P. Morgan has hundreds of millions of ounces of silver. You've seen it. You've heard people talking about it. It's been on all the different channels. So it's very hard to give up a narrative that's so deeply ingrained in your brain because of this 24/7 news cycle and social media cycle. All right. What else do we have? Remember when Trump had Rosenstein flying Air Force One? Yeah, I did talk about that, De La Ville. He must have been sweating. That Rosenstein. Yeah. Coins AZ is a registered Dem, even though I voted in every presidential election since I was 18. I did not vote for Obama. Philip Quinn says, I'd vote for Lewis. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. Thank you for your donation as well. His slogan would be a mug in every household. Absolutely. Who said a mug in every pot? I mean, a chicken in every pot. There was one president who had said that. Seth, he's so reasonable and objective. I love it. Lewis for president, DW. Seth would vote for Lewis, too. Very good. Well, I got a new political campaign. I got to start getting ready for New Hampshire and get all my papers filed. I've got at least 5 votes here already. Let's see. What else do we have? Vote Lewis and Salivate Metal can be his Treasury Secretary. Well, that would be cool. Lewis, what are we going to do today? We do videos and call it executive time. Salivate Metal. Who would be the vice president? Trump is an elitist. At least he's pro-America. All right. What else? He's pro-mug, says Philip. Yes. All right. You can write my name in, Seth. That'd be interesting. See if it ever showed up on the list. All right. What else do we got? I think that's it. Oh, so many more comments, but I think we might have to shut it down because YouTube may shut us off anyway. So I better quit while I'm ahead here. Let's see if I have any other comments. All right, Ken Insta, thoughts on gold-backed cryptos? I don't think that they're all I think that gold-backed cryptos do, and we saw, if you missed it earlier today, I don't know if it's crypto, but there's this digital gold you can buy, apparently coming out soon on Google Play or whatever it is. There already are offerings where you can buy gold via some type of blockchain offering. If gold today is a store of value and it can be spent, it gives it the versatility that it lost because in the digital age, while gold and silver were clearly the best way to transact before there was any digital, it was the best thing. You could make them into coins. They were perfect currencies. Today, they're not perfect because you can't. A lot of people don't transact as much as they used to in their local area. They buy stuff all over the world, all over the country, via credit card, via check, whatever they do. They don't move gold and silver the way they used to. So it does re-energize the gold as a currency. So there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not against it, but I don't think it has. I mean, you can store your. You can have. I guess it's a good thing. You have. It's a good thing. You have your savings in a gold crypto account, and then you can spend those savings. It somewhat defeats the purpose of putting it away in a vault somewhere, but it's in someone else's vault, and I don't think it's going to make added demand for gold, because that's just changing the form in which people will buy it. And actually, the reason I'm somewhat against it is, who knows if these companies will actually be good stewards of your gold when they're there. And so people buy a digital crypto gold versus going on SD Bullion and buying something. It may not do it. It may just mean instead of buying a physical gold, you buy the digital gold. So it really doesn't do much for demand. All right. Well, that's about it. I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night. And unless I see anything in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to say goodnight. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo star and good night.